Alright, good morning ladies and gentlemen. It is here in the CCT that Counter-Strike ensues yet again. My name is Nexus. I'm joined by a couple of, I'd say you call them up-and-coming casters here, Nearkai and Anders. How you fellas doing this fine afternoon, or noon?
Great. Yeah, doing well, man. Doing well. I'm looking forward to this one, Anders. This is actually kind of an interesting game, and kind of kickstarting the playoffs a little bit. Obviously, we had a bit of a cancellation earlier with that forfeit win, but now we're actually into the thick of things. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fantastic game. It's been a while since I've actually had a chance to cast Fnatic, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, well, let's just hop over to it then. We can kind of take a look at the full bracket for mode before we go too deep into what Fnatic and Bait have for us here. You mentioned a couple of forfeit wins, that cancellations mean that we are going to be starting off on the, well, second game of the day, so to say, but here, the playoffs already, I guess, shaping up in a way, and we're focusing toward the left side for now, but before we do, is there any other game that's kind of piquing your interest here? I'll start with Neo for now.
Oh, I mean, honestly, I would have originally said that NSOG game just because this is the kind of two teams that are fighting to get back into Tier 1, but unfortunately, that one's not to be. So I guess, aside from that, maybe it could be quite interesting to see sort of what Nine Pandas and Monty are looking like. Of course, two other sides as well that are kind of trying to get back into sort of Tier 1 invites, but not quite there. I think it's probably the way to go about it. They're going through roster changes. And Monty have now just brought in a young new IGL, a UK guy called Gizmy, who's been playing at the academy. Pretty talented kid, so I'm excited to see what he can do and kind of rep in the UK scene. We don't get too many representatives, so I kind of take what I can get with that one. And Nine Pandas themselves trying to rebuild and find the success of like that major qualification team, but unfortunately, of course, couldn't go due to visa issues. But this is, for me, a game that maybe could be like, you know, two, I say like, higher end tier 2 sides, but aside from that, I don't know, it could be quite interesting, all of them.
Well, I'm looking forward to it as well. I think the Imperial female game, they're going to be playing against Paravision. I think I'm excited. I'm into that story, so I think that's going to be tons of fun. But it's not going to be today. Yeah, I mean, I think this game actually might be sort of the highlight of the day. But in general, you know, I'm ready. I'm ready to be wrong. You know, it's happened in the past.
Yeah, now for this one, Bait, Fnatic, we gotta tease this one already. Let's go into this one instead then. So, for Bait, you've got a recent roster move. You've added a bit more firepower. Captain Kurtka has been swapped, and Kenzie Zora has been brought in. However, both seem to have landed fairly well on their feet. Captain Kurtka, especially from what I've seen. He's become a fragging machine now that he's no longer here. But for this team, right, you have a couple of very young guns that I don't think a lot of people already... Or I think a lot of people already know exactly what they're all about. They've kind of made a name for themselves. Now they're adding more firepower to it. But is that all there is to it? So, what else do you look at here on this team?
I mean, for me, Kenzo actually feels like a really, really nice pickup. I think, you know, this is a young, talented rifler who's got a lot to give. Captain Kirker's definitely had his sort of ups and downs within this team. So I actually really like the pickup. For me, one big indicator of where I've seen a lot of success for Bait, and I think generally people look towards players like MPL, of course, who's this fragging IGL that they started been rocking with, and he's been putting up some pretty insane numbers, and obviously Hedrick as well, post-NIP era, looking kind of back in form and looking really, really solid. But for me, actually, one of the big indicators of where you start to see this side doing well is actually Ascenthiel. So when he first came in towards this roster, I really wasn't impressed by him, mate. He looked, you know, very, very nervous. He wasn't doing well in terms of his roles. He wasn't supporting the team. The numbers were very inadequate, but he's really picked up his form, and for me, he's actually started to look really, really solid. So I think when you see Ascenthiel starting to play in a confident manner, that's a pretty good indicator of how this team's actually playing out. So Bait, they've been a fun roster. I think obviously everything is sort of led and sort of brought together by MPL, and he's required to put up good numbers, but thankfully he pretty consistently does.
Yeah, I mean, I think the post-NIP situation is certainly interesting for those two players. Obviously, on the Fnatic side of things, personally, I'm excited to see Crims still playing the game. It's crazy how long his career has been. And for BlameF, obviously, you know, like I would think this is one of those crucial moments for him in his career. Like, you know, how does it look now that he's kind of out of Danish Counter-Strike, and obviously he got that title as being, you know, the Bait F, which, you know, fair or not, whatever you think about that, like, he's obviously going to want to prove himself into the future as being, you know, a truly capable player. And I mean, if you do it with this Fnatic roster, that's going to say a lot into the future, I think.
Yeah, I think there was a quote BlameF said that he has to grind his way back to the top, which now in this new roster, I've already seen it, I think, play once. I think he's kind of trying to get rid of that Bait F name almost, because he played very aggressive in the last series that they played against Rebels. He was in those fights, he wanted to take those duels early on, and he was a massive game changer for that as well. So even as a BlameF doubter or a Bait F believer, as myself I am, I kind of see that change already, and I think that maybe is something that Fear is bringing in, alongside a system for an AWPer like Burmilov to potentially shine, which I feel like is also a different topic as well, because he's more of a passive AWPer in himself, from Mao's NXT to this. Although I still think the roles for him that he has to adapt to are still very similar from then to now, but I kind of want to see where he develops with the IGLing of Fear as well in this roster.
Yeah, I agree. I actually look at this side with kind of a lot of hope, actually. I think Fnatic have done a really good job of sort of rebuilding. It's in a similar vein that we kind of, joked about the kind of post-NIP era for Head Trick. I actually like this sort of new Fnatic look in the same vein that NIP have rebuilt in a good way. I think Fnatic have as well. This is two really good pickups. Fear, for me, I think is a very, very solid IGL. The stuff he was doing with Passion UA was super commendable. And this has been a guy who's actually done a very good job in the past playing with mixed rosters and a variety of nationalities and in terms of languages and what they're used to. And I think he always manages to make it work. So for me, Fear as a pickup, I think is incredibly solid. I think it's a pretty big upgrade as well when you think of kind of what this team was before. Body and Afro, I wasn't a huge fan of either of them, if I'm being perfectly honest, but I think Burmilov in for Afro, direct upgrade. I think Burmilov has a lot of potential as well, so that should be really sick. And Fear for me feels like a better caller at the moment than Body. So I like this team. I think there's lots to offer up. Crims is still kicking it as well, Unk still got it, which is good to see. So nice. I'm happy with this team.
I mean, 9 years in Fnatic, that'll still keep him running, and he's got to try to go for that 10 as well, I'm sure. But we still got a couple more things to go through, and one of those is the veto. We got to know what maps we are playing, and for this, I think it's a slightly difficult job to guess with a lack of games for Bait recently. They've only had so many, and most of them in ECL recently as well, so you have a little bit of leeway or unknown as well with adding Kenzie's all to the roster now as well, to see what maps they're going to be swaying to nowadays as to in the past itself. So let's go find out what we have instead for those as well.
Okay.
Everyone's got their fingers crossed that it's going to be Train, but we all know that most of the teams right now end up banning it out. So Dust 2 is out, and so is Train. Oh, boo's in the chat.
Yeah, that does actually suck. But it seems to be kind of the thing that we've got at the moment where a lot of these tier 2 teams that are the upper end are actually banning out Train just because they don't want to risk it. We get the Inferno pick coming through for Fnatic, followed up by the Anubis pick for Bait, both of which I'm pretty happy with. I like these maps. I think they actually offer up quite a lot in terms of insight into where the strengths are in these sort of vetoes. So that for me feels really good. I would say, in a way, the Inferno pick feels like this is Fear trying to instill maybe a little bit of a Passion UA system, more so than kind of what has been good for Fnatic in the past, because Fnatic have had their ups and downs in this map in the past, right? We're looking into kind of last year or so, and it wasn't always a great map for them, and while they would have some close results, they would actually pick up quite a few losses, and I feel like this is where for Fear, he said, I used to be a very good caller, I was a very good caller on this map in my previous team, and I think I can bring my sort of system to you and help you and basically allow for players like Matties and Blame F to take over the server a lot. So big fans of that. Anubis coming through. It's always been a good map for Bait, so a fan of that pickup as well for them. That one should be very solid, and I think it's more or less a bit of a guaranteed win. And then it's down to this decider. There's a few different ways it could go, but with that Mirage ban, I'm assuming Nuke ban kicks come through as well, so I think it probably will be an Ancient if I had to guess.
It's just such a common playground now, isn't it, for most teams? So, yeah. Easy pick.
Whenever Ancient's left over after the first picks, I just assume it's going to be an Ancient decider. It just feels like it's always it.
Yeah, I'm tempted to agree, but you know what? Also, I'm not so sad about it. As a certified Nuke fan, I still don't mind having a bit of Ancient every once in a while. It's actually, the map's kind of growing on me a little bit more, so overall, not a bad selection. Inferno, we'll see if they can find an interesting way to play it. It's been playing much the same, but maybe these teams have to be more creative than the top level teams.
Yeah, I think that's the big part of it as well in these tier 2 teams, and they get more exploring with these maps and more innovative as well. A lot of teams just look to them for new strats and new smokes and such and things. But here's what I actually want to bring up, a small topic as well. I mentioned Burmilov before as well, his time with Mouse and XD as well. Now, here on Inferno, I think as an AWPer, right, you're not always looking at him to be the star of this team, or this map specifically. But I think on Inferno, he's going to be doing fairly well, right? I say kind of the roles and people around him from Mouse and XT to now, I don't think he has to change all too much initially. And for that as well, I think back to Burmilov Inferno, he was very solid, a very supportive AWPer, someone who was doing very well to hold at the angle, find 1 and maybe 2 as well. I think here he's kind of, or Fear as well, is playing into that sort of past of himself and Burmilov, and then trying to regroup and shape this Fnatic team to be something that bigger and better than they were previously as well. So I kind of think that it's all leading to a very good surprise pick for Fnatic of Inferno.
Yeah, I actually like the Bermalov pickup. I think the only thing I ask for Bermalov is actually just a little bit of consistency. When we saw him in Mars NXT, he would actually have this sort of thing that it would annoy me a little bit just because I know how good he can be. I mean, he passes the eye test with flying colors, but it would be like, you know, one map he dropped like 23 kills, 9 deaths. He's like, okay, fantastic. And then the next map he's dropping like 8, right? And it was just like this wild inconsistency that we would see map per map from Bermalov was always a little bit of an annoyance to me, because you could just think, if we could just round this out to like a little bit more of like a consistent, like, you know, 15 to 17 range of each and every map, he's just doing such a solid job for his team. And then he has to come in as, you know, obviously what many AWPers are in just terms of supporting util, and that's a perfect setup. But I think that Bermalov having these sort of wild inconsistencies for me is probably the one thing I would want to fix sort of from his sort of game style. But I think that's maybe where Fear can come in. I think this is kind of an IGL is going to know how to use kind of young AWPers as he did with Jambo in Passion UA. So I actually have a lot of faith that Fear can kind of fix some of these inconsistency problems and actually make Bermalov a real top contender for maybe even getting kind of a bit of a push in towards tier 1.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever agreed with you ever more on a thing than this one. So I'm gonna let you guys have it here. Full map number 1. Let's see how Inferno does actually go. So Anders Neo, take it away here for the first map.
Yes, thank you so much. Nexus, let's go. We're getting into it, and we'll get a chance to get all of our questions answered. It's Bait versus Fnatic, and we're in a best of 3 here for CCT. And I am excited for this one. I want to see some Counter-Strike action popping up. It's going to be Bait starting on the CT side and Fnatic on that T side. And already they are looking to put a little bit of pressure on Banana. I was going to say rush it, but they actually do slow down quite a bit.
Okay, I'm actually really interested to see how this Fnatic Inferno looks. Like I said, it's into the tail end of last year, this was not a good map for them in their pool. I mean, they would have some close results, sure, but there were losses, right? And that's ultimately kind of all that matters for me. So I'm wondering what Fear can kind of bring to this team in terms of his calling style to fix some of the issues that plague this Fnatic side. They're going to go quick here.
Yeah, not slowing it down. In through the Molotov, but they're going to get the trade kills they're looking for. And, yeah, unfortunately, just not enough to stop them. Even the smoke, even the nades landing there in front, it just didn't stop Fnatic from powering on through. So a 4 versus 3 now. The bomb's going to get planted, and with the dualies here on BlameF, you have to assume it's going to be a very tough retake. I don't see much utility. One flashbang. Where do you want to use it? To the church or inside of the bomb site? If you don't actually flash this corner, Crims might just get a free kill, and he might do that anyway. No one's checking this. Kenzazor is dead, and Essential and NPL alone. Actually, great work trying to fight their way back here, but remember, time is running short already. They don't have the kit, so it's going to be a real long battle to try and get this one back, and BlameF will make sure that never happens. A nice triple for him in the round, and Fnatic with a pretty straightforward push to the B bomb site. No real tricks, just, you know, a little bit delayed, but they got the job done.
Yeah, it is true. I mean, I actually like it, the way in which Fnatic played it. Quite quick, through the molly, and they just know if we can just play as a bit of a pack here in terms of our initial attack, we're going to get that bomb down. We're going to put so much pressure on towards Bait. Not a bad effort at all by MPL, the 2 kills to his name, but unfortunately just not enough. And that's where that sort of pack mentality again, to get that bomb down as early as, puts so much pressure on towards Bait, because they've got to go a long rotate over from the A site. What an all good start for Fnatic. Just looking a lot more confident. Hot flash round. Looks like Alex will be tested once again here. Just jiggling on the corner, but he just eats a dink as well. So down to 11 to start off this round.
Yeah, not exactly what you want to see. But with that Mac 10 as well from Fear, you have to assume that he's going to be leading the charge in a bunch of these rounds, trying to get into the action. You know, to try and break up the MP9s or whatever's on the other side. I don't know, this is a map though, like, you know, I know you don't like the second round force-ups, but I mean, if you were going to do it on a map, Inferno's got to be the map where, like, the 5.7s and the MP9s can be so deadly.
This feels like at least the one where I can sort of completely understand it in a sense. You know, we've got so many close quarters engagements, so many cubbies that you can just be kind of a bit of a nuisance in, and obviously we know how good the 5.7 can be. I mean, even this, right, in towards apartments, a player like this can do a whole world of good. For now, though, looks like we're going to have an A finish for Fnatic, but they're taking their sweet time. Moving their way through mid, you've got Fear just wrapping in towards long, and there's just no one here.
Yeah, and again, it's a calculated risk. Even Kenzazor, he's realizing where they are, but he actually probably, in some world, probably wanted to try and sneak over to the B-bomb site, because they're just going to save what they got for the next round. By the way, Corey in the Twitch chat saying he's from the future and he knows already it's going to be a 0-13 in favor of Fnatic, I'm assuming at this point. So how crazy is that? We've got people from the future joining to predict the game. That's never happened before, but we'll see. We'll see if Corey is in fact right or if he's going to get, called out. If it's going to be, maybe he's going to expose himself. Regardless, yeah, I mean, it's a standard risk versus reward calculation for bait, and they're just saying if they come B, we might win, and if not, we've got the next round where we've got the MP9s,
Yeah, exactly that. So, second round on the board for Fnatic, in a very good way in which to do it. Barely taking any damage. Only Crim's taking a slight tag, and you're pretty happy, right, in terms of where you're currently finding yourselves. I mean, this is a Fnatic side who are really scaling up in towards this game quite rapidly. So, I like what I see. Bait for them. It is a bit of an awkward predicament. I think, they're now back in towards kind of just playing around what was saved that previous round, but there's just not a lot to work with. So, yeah, it's a tough sort of situation for them, really, that they're in. I mean, we're talking about where, for Bait, you can't really do a hell of a lot in towards this round, so it should be a 3-0 start for Fnatic. And it puts a world of pressure on towards your next gun round. I mean, if we let this one slip, it's probably going to be... I mean, what, 5-6 at that point in favor of Fnatic? It could be awkward. That's a great nade to start things off, though.
Yeah, that grenade couldn't really have been any better. It lands right on Fear, and again, he's got the Mach 10, so if anyone was going to get dinged by a grenade, let it be him. He's probably going to be happy to throw his life away just to try and get some information. Because of the last round, Fnatic know there's a really good chance there's just another stack in this round, so they're never just going to do a full execute here. They're always going to space it up a little bit. Even if it is an execute, they're probably going to send Fear in first just to check and make sure, because that's how you lose a round like this, right? So I think Fnatic, they have all the information they need. They don't know exactly where the stack is, but they know it's going to be somewhere on the map. So they're being very careful. They still have some little bit of utility to make their way across the map and try and check every corner. They are walking into the arch here, and it's actually Matt's leading the charge. So Matt's a little bit scary here, maybe even unnecessarily so, giving up the Galil. And now pushing back towards the B-bomb side instead. But there's only really a single player, and if they're quick, they should be able to win this fight.
Let's see. Playback. He'll be in first. He's now a bit of support as well. Headshot going to drop over to util over. Alex wants to swing. Then gets blinded up as well, to make matters worse. And he swings in towards a Molotov. So this feels like it already could be done. He's not being clear properly, though. Smoke down towards Coffins. What's happening? They've given Headshot a freebie. And Alex is still not cleared. He'll get one. He looks for another. And they push through on the trade. This is falling apart for Fnatic. That was a dreadful take on towards that B side.
Yeah, it really was. In spite of the team flash that was being thrown there from Bates, what a miserable turn of events for Fnatic. That's a little bit unforgivable, I'm not gonna lie. If you look at the timing here, they could have probably taken this B-bomb site before the rotation even happened. But somehow they weren't quite sure, they were a little bit too nervous, and they didn't make the full commitment. And that kind of sucks to see, because I think that's one of the things that always triggers me the most when I'm watching Counter-Strike, is when you see a team, like, they have the right idea, they actually might even have the timing for it, but there's no executive decision being made to say, let's go. We have the info, we know they're at Arch, we already have like 1 or 2 players near that top banana position, we're gonna take that bomb site right now. Like, when you delay it that much, it's almost always a bad call.
Yeah, I gotta agree. So Blame F. What's off on towards half corner wall there, sayers. Top banana control is that priority once again. Previous round, that was a very, very awkward call that was made in that mid-round, mid to late round, I guess, as they're trying to go in towards that B side at the end. And you could just see the panic, the lack of comms that broke down there. Matties wants to sort of get out of Boiler. Not exactly the easiest spot to go out for on your own. Smoke down will basically deny all of that conversation.
Yeah, they're gonna try and reset the round a bit here. Oh, that's one hell of a smoke. It actually lands up on that little balcony. Kind of cool to see. So presumably a lot harder for the CTs to easily boost over the look. I have to check if they actually can or not. I've seen ways to throw that from the CT side if you wanted to, but from the T side is kind of new. But here we go. In towards the B-bomb side. Back again, we are trying to overpower the M4s and actually doing a fantastic job. Somehow, this is an even more successful round. And it could lead to a very quick save here because it's Inferno, Neil. We all know how this plays out. Oh, no. Yeah, they're saving already.
Oh, yeah. I honestly don't actually even blame them. Trying to retake on towards that B site at this stage in the round just feels, next to impossible, basically. So, understandable.
Yeah, quick update from Corey. Says he's sorry for lying about 13-0. Can we forgive him now? Can we give him a break?
No. He lied. He lied.
It's unfortunately it's over. Neo has judged you as guilty, and we're not. There's no coming back. He's not from the future, guys. We trusted. He said he was, and he's not.
I always love that kind of you know that I forgot his name now. The scientist who held a birthday party, but only invited people. He only sent the invites out after the birthday or whatever, and it was meant for time travelers. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't know about this. That's great.
The really renowned scientist who was in a wheelchair, Stephen Hawking. Right, so Stephen Hawking, he held a birthday or some sort of party or whatever, and it was only meant for people from the future. So the invites got sent out weeks or years after the actual party was.
Yeah.
And it was meant to try and get people to come to the to his party, but no
essentially
one turned up.
out themselves as time travelers. That's
exactly
the idea. Okay,
but no one came.
Okay, well,
So-
Corey was working on a similar theory just in Twitch chat, and he presumably isn't the same physicist that Hawking was, but still, a nice attempt anyway. I appreciate the thought. Bit of a timeout here being called, but I think for Fnatic, it's a good sign that they managed to pick themselves up. Like I said, I think the thing that really led to their downfall in that third round is the indecision about attacking the B bomb site. So I like the fact that now they're just back saying, okay, you know what? That was too slow. We were kind of fumbling around a little bit. No more of that. Let's just go for it. I think that's the right attitude, especially on a map like Inferno. So I'm happy to see it. For Bait, on the other hand, it's good that they get to save some rifles and they can still battle their way back. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Hetrick on a map like this, you think this is going to be a good AWPing map for Hetrick?
Do you know what? I actually probably am one of the few. A lot of people kind of disagree with my sentiment here, but I actually don't like AWPing on Inferno. I think it's one of the few. Kind of similar to the vein that we were speaking about with how this map feels like you can kind of force play quite well on because of all these sort of nooks and crannies that you can sort of play within. I actually think this is not a great map for AWPing, and I think this is the type of map actually where you see sort of. I guess kind of flex players, these players, obviously a great example. Yeah, exactly. Players that can use a rifle with ease as well. Zyru's probably the best example, is he picks up a rifle more than an AWP. But I think this is probably the best map for it. I think AWPing is actually quite difficult. It's quite easy to get exposed as well on Inferno. All the util sets these days are so brutal on Inferno that you're basically fighting blind more often than not. Hence why I'm not always a huge fan of AWPing on this map. I actually think there's probably a lot to be done with if you can be a proficient rifler, and I think that's where maybe Berbalov could show a little something here. Kensdorf for the first. We'll get Crims.
I was gonna say, I think that's a good solution. If you are flexible, that's good. There are obviously some AWPers that can do it, right, historically, but it is a very different experience. I kind of get what you're saying. Unless you happen to be one of those close combat AWPers, maybe it's better to not. And I guess we'll see if Hetrick is going to be up for it, because there is a chance that all you're doing is retreating from angles and getting flashed and smoked off, and it's well, why buy the rifle then? Why not just get something else, because you're not going to be helpful to the team? But yeah, maybe that's something that we just write up in the back of our mind and say, let's check in with Hetrick and see what kind of an impact he's having. Certainly, Matters is having an impact, taking down Alex, a fantastic start, and pushing the bomb site. Kensisor is dead, and Fnatic, it was a lot more slower. I think they must have been surprised themselves. Damn, how far can we get onto the bomb site before we actually engage with anyone? But it works.
And another save call being made as well for Bait. And, unfortunate for them, right? There's just nothing really they can do. So, 4-1 start. And already, this is looking a lot better than, at least what I'm getting from, previous iterations of Fnatic. They've always looked just a little bit all over the place. I will say as well, I've had their worries about the CT side a little bit, so that I think will be a big indicator of how Fnatic look. But as a T-side start, on a map in which they've historically, as an organization, at least in the last sort of year or so, struggled on, or at least had their ups and downs on, this is looking a lot better for me. I think Fear is obviously bringing sort of that Passion UA style, and at the moment, I can't really complain at all. So a 4-1 start is pretty good. Bait for them. I'm assuming go back into the buy here, but it is a little awkward, right? Because Hedges could have to drop one over Alex is in a little bit of a financially weak state, but we're sort of teetering with the idea of these, what it kind of feels like bits of half buys, right? We got an MP9 and a Galil having to be brought up alongside the AWP and a double M4A1S, so it's not exactly a full buy, which then doesn't really give Bait a lot of confidence. It's this sort of rinse and repeat cycle.
I'm curious to see if we're going to see a more assertive Bait in some of the next couple of rounds here, because that's got to be a bit of a wake-up call for them when they let Fnatic walk that deep in onto the map and just don't even notice him.
Okay, classic.
That's so funny. They wanted to do the silent boost, and instead they
so
made
much
it
noise.
as loud as humanly possible.
It was louder than just, like if they just did the normal jump where you jump up, you make a small amount of noise. That was, you know, twice as loud basically.
You know, that makes me so happy because, you know, whenever I'm playing the game and, you know, I've been streaming a bit recently, like, I always feel like an idiot whenever I screw up jumps and stuff like that. But it's you know, it's heartwarming to see the pros also, you know, make those mistakes. That makes me feel human again. I'm like, all right, good times. We're going to see what looks like potentially another B fake here. Unless we're going to see the last two Fnatic players kind of join up towards Banana. It feels like they're just going to try and posture a little bit here. That's a weird smoke. That's not meant to land like that.
No.
So they might have actually
know how
I think they might have like screwed their own fake here, but it doesn't seem like Bait is reacting because they should be aware. Wait a minute, like that's a deep smoke. There's nothing else really we can see out into Banana, and there's nobody there. But they're not reacting, and they're actually alone at the A bomb side. So this could be a little bit of a problem. But there's Hetrick proving himself opening on the CT side. That's at least something.
This is a good angle for it. The short play is the best play, right? You play your first angle up into a boiler, you reset onto a site, you get one, you fall back. This is how you warp on this map. There's not many places you can do it. I mean, if this was the B site, it feels like it's easy to overrun. But Kenzazor with 2 big kills right at the tail end and 3 in total, showcasing what he's got up his sleeve. Hedrick does very well for those first 2. All he does is find that simple kind of short angle, gets the kill force back on towards site, gets another kill force back again. That's the way to play it. And then allow for your riflers to step up and clean up whatever's sort of left. So, very, very well done there from Bait, and finally back into a bit of a successful position. Now we just need a bit of consistency.
And in truth, too, like, they had no utility Fnatic, so they had to peek into the AWP with nothing. Like, they had no Molotov. You can obviously Molotov that corner from without even turning the short position, and also they could have just flashed it and put some pressure on them, but they had none of those things, so they just walk into the AWP, you know, 2 or 3 times, and unfortunately that's too much. Otherwise, for Fnatic, there was the right call. Like, they'd done a good enough job in spite of the failed Molotov or the failed smoke. They'd actually done a decent job of keeping 3 people at the B bomb side, but they had no more utility to get rid of the AWP, so that's unfortunate, and it puts a little bit of strain on their economy. They don't have a lot left in the bank here, so if they can't win this round, it'll be interesting. Bermalov, though, he's got the AWP. And again, they're pushing that B bomb side. Honestly, I love it. If they win one fight here, even if it's 2-for-1 trade in favor of Bait, it doesn't really matter. They should be able to power through. Molotov goes down. Essential is dead right following that, and that's enough. Look at the pressure here. Hetrick certainly dead. That's all you need, is that 1 kill at B, and it's a tale as old as time, and you should be able to win the round. And it's not even possible, I think, for Bait to retake this.
No, I think you're right. What they got, if they can, and a Deagle here that wants some scalps, and Crims gets both. So that conversation about saving is muted very quickly. Now there might even be more behind it. Crims is sticking around. He hasn't exactly gone for the upgrade of the weapon just yet, but Alex is looking for a fight, and in this form for Crims, this could be awkward. It's Playmef who sees it off at the end, so no saving at all. Not a bad way for Fnatic to respond, especially considering what they brought to the table there.
Sometimes you just have to keep it simple, right? Like, it doesn't have to be complicated, and I think trading your way through B it's a surprisingly efficient strategy. Even though it sounds like, obviously, especially, you know, I love the elaborate strategies. I like it when people go for crazy Molotovs and wild smokes and double, triple fakes and splits with the CT spawn. Like, it's all awesome, but on some level, sometimes all you need is to trade your way into the B bomb side. And in theory, you could keep doing this. Like, if you're Fnatic, you could do this another 5 times in a row, and it might work, like, you know, another 3 times out of the 5. And that's statistically, you're doing great, right? So that's also why I think Inferno is one of the more sort of disappointing maps, is that it actually does make sense sometimes to just kind of do the same thing over and over again, go back and find that B bomb site. obviously there are times when Bait are going to try and stack it and try and get like 3
Yeah.
people there at the beginning, but really